The chamber was clean in the way butcher shops are clean. White walls, white floor, white light. It was a kind of place built by a species that feared dirt not for its infection, but for what it might reveal. Every surface gleamed, sterilized not just of bacteria, but of history. Silence stretched like a taut wire between the onlookers and the woman standing barefoot in the center, arms relaxed, fingers slightly curled. She smiled faintly, like someone remembering the punchline to a private joke long after the laughter had gone. She had no cuffs, no bindings, no restraints. The Empire wanted it that way. Ceremony. They liked spectacle. They needed it. When you rule by fear, the performance of control matters more than control itself. To their mind, the human posed no threat now. Not in the Supreme Chamber. Not beneath the gaze of 12 bioadjudicators, whose minds were linked to the fleet's command AI. Not within reach of the Supreme Leader himself, perched above like a god carved from sapphire and arrogance. She didn't flinch as the charges were read aloud. Didn't interrupt as the crimes, terrorism, sabotage, genocide, were listed one by one in the droning voice of the Emperor's orator drone. Her eyes stayed fixed on the central dais where the Supreme Leader sat. His face was veiled, but she could feel the heat of his attention. That was the thing about the Imperial caste. They always assumed their gaze was enough to shatter you. She let them look, let them drink in her pale skin, the faint scars etched along her wrists and collarbone. Let them see the slight limp in her left step, the way she blinked less often than most. They had waited decades for this, the so-called last witch of Earth. The ghost the Empire had hunted, denied, whispered about in shadows, even as they told their young the humans had been pacified, defanged, made useful. And yet here she was, alive, smiling, in the heart of their throne world. "You understand the charges," the Supreme Leader finally said. His voice was modulated, sexless. It came from the ceiling, not the mouth. An affectation meant to elevate him beyond mere flesh. She tilted her head. "Oh, I do." "Do you deny them?" "No," she said softly. "I wrote them." A murmur passed through the attending nobles. Even the adjudicators shifted faintly, their translucent robes fluttering despite the still air. Her voice, calm, human, unhurried, was a problem. They had expected fire, sobbing, resistance. Not this serenity. "We offered your species peace," the voice continued, now colder. "We gave your people tools, lifted them from savagery. And still, you chose chaos. Is that what you think happened?" There was a pause. Pregnant. Artificial. A glitch, perhaps, in the Supreme Leader's neuromodulator. Or maybe he hadn't expected her to speak again. "I think," he said, "you were always a danger to yourselves." She murmured. "Projection's a hell of a drug." Another murmur, louder this time. One adjudicator leaned forward as if in fascination. Another blinked rapidly, which in their species indicated nausea. "Why come here?" the leader asked at last. "Why surrender?" She looked up, not at him, but through him, beyond him. "Because you forgot me." A silence fell so deep it seemed to tilt the room. The drone stopped reciting. The guards tensed, subtle as shadows. Even the light dimmed slightly, as if unsure of its own presence. "They buried us in data," she said. "Buried Earth under statistics, obituaries, projections. They counted our casualties until the numbers were too big to mean anything. That was your victory, wasn't it? Turning our pain into abstraction." She stepped forward. Nobody stopped her. "I was born in the fire you lit. Raised in a basement classroom where the ceiling leaked acid and the textbooks were copies of war logs. I ate protein that smelled like plastic and slept to the sound of orbital bombardments. My generation was made in your shadow." She took another step. "You told the galaxy we died. We didn't. We changed." The Supreme Leader's voice had no inflection, but it cut through the air like a falling blade. "You are not the first human to come crawling back, but you will be the last." That made her laugh. Just once. Sharp. Almost joyful. It startled the guards more than a scream might have. "No," she said. "You don't get to decide that. Behind her, a translator drone buzzed erratically. One of its vocal modules cracked, repeating a single line in Old Slavic. He is listening. The Supreme Leader raised one gloved hand. Two guards stepped forward. I do not require your final words, the voice said, heavy with finality. This trial is over. But the story isn't. One of the adjudicators blinked. What story? Ours. She didn't resist as the guards reached for her arms. But as their hands met her skin, something shimmered beneath it, barely perceptible. A pulse of cold blue that wasn't bioluminescent, wasn't mechanical. It was memory. They jerked back. One stumbled. The other dropped his stun blade. What did you do? The leader snapped. She simply turned her face toward the ceiling. A long pause. Then, trigger. Far above the throne world, beyond orbital security nets, past surveillance satellites, outside the gaze of the Empire's most paranoid monitors, an old human beacon flared awake. It had been silent for 31 years. No one had heard its cry. Until now. In the chamber, the lights flickered. An adjudicator's faceplate fogged with internal condensation. The translator drone let out a soft, childlike laugh. Wrong, broken. Error, it whispered. Error. We forgot. A red glyph bloomed across every screen in the room. A single Earth word. Remember. The guards moved again, faster this time, but the Baba Yaga wasn't running. She stood utterly still. Her expression was calm, almost motherly. You forgot what fear feels like, she said gently. The ceiling groaned. Somewhere in the city, a siren wailed, a tone not heard since the final year of the Earth Wars. A pause. Then a deep, percussive tum echoed through the floor, ancient, heavy, mechanical. Something had entered the atmosphere. Panic spread quickly among the lesser officials. The adjudicators scrambled to update protocols. Even the Supreme Leader's dais shivered slightly on its hover supports. Data streams conflicted. Projections failed. The planetary AI began rerouting emergency authority channels. The woman turned toward the hall's central lens, the one recording her for Imperial archives. She raised her chin. Blood had begun to drip from her palm, where something sharp hid in her sleeve. A relic. A blade made from the melted dog tags of her entire training unit. She let the blood fall. It splattered across the clean white floor like punctuation. The monster, she said, wasn't Earth. Another tomb, closer. Atmospheric rupture. She smiled. You made me. Then the chamber's roof burst open like a peeled fruit. A human drop pod, blackened with ashen age, slammed into the center of the hall, throwing guards, cracking marble, and vaporizing one unlucky noble in a mist of steaming flesh. Out of the debris, a gun skidded across the floor, scratched, human, ancient. She bent, picked up, and for the first time, she looked directly at the Supreme Leader. I didn't come to be judged, she said. I came to begin. And she opened fire. The first shot didn't echo, it hummed. A low, resonant thrum that didn't just pass through the air but inhabited it, like a memory waking up in the bones of the chamber. The Supreme Leader didn't move, but the shimmer of his energy field flared a shade too bright. That was panic translated into light. The Baba Yaga moved like the war had never ended. One round into the air, two into the translator drone that had begun spewing corrupted language packets in tongues no longer spoken. Its chassis collapsed in a twitching heap of sparks and untranslatable apologies. Then silence. Not peace. Silence. Not one of the guards moved. Not one adjudicator spoke. The Empire had protocols for ambush, riot, siege, sabotage. But not for her. Not for a human with dead eyes and blood under her nails, standing in the wreckage of their highest court like a returned myth. They had statistics. They had doctrine. They had contingency plans. But she had patience. She had grief crystallized into method. She had waited 31 years to begin this dance. The floor pulsed red. One of the adjudicators, small, twitching, blind in one eye, made a fatal choice. It stepped forward and reached for a wrist, calmed the Baba Yaga, shot it through the clavicle, dropped it mid-breath. The scream came 2 seconds after the body hit the floor. It echoed down the marble hallways, bouncing through heritage-coded acoustic channels designed to amplify the Empire's grandeur. Now, they carried a different message. We are bleeding. The Supreme Leader's voice returned, now colder. No longer from the ceiling, but from his own mouth. This was serious. You've chosen death. She cocked her head. I chose memory. Death was your decision. The leader's dais began to rise, up and away, toward a sealed escape shaft that only opened during solar flares or uprisings. This wasn't a trial anymore. It was a battlefield. He just didn't understand yet that it always had been. The chamber shook as something distant struck the outer atmosphere. Not debris, not meteor. A human signal beacon, old and encrypted, had crashed through the orbital net. In the skies above, the Empire's defense grid began to stutter. Satellites blinked offline. Protocol chains scrambled. One central command relay began to play a distorted loop of old Earth radio static. Slow, rhythmic crackling. Are you lonely tonight? The ancient song played once, twice. Then the signal spread. Infectious, recursive. In the control halls across the capital, alien officers tried to override the wave. But the system didn't fight back. It listened. Their AIs began translating the static into orders, then counterorders, then fictions. Some defense drones were told they were at a birthday parade. Others initiated mournful shutdowns, announcing retirement ceremonies for long-dead generals. One Imperial bridge crew committed mass suicide when their HUDs suddenly populated with footage of the Battle of Dresden, 1945. They didn't know what they were watching. They just felt something human. And it hurt. Back in the court chamber, the Baba Yaga moved through smoke and static, picking up a stun baton and driving it through the base of a guard's neck. Another tried to fire back. She flipped behind the remnants of a fractured memory shard, a translucent display that had once projected the Empire's founding anthem, and used the edge to slit his carotid. Blood sprayed like the wrong kind of confetti. Her eyes flicked up. A young alien watched from behind a fallen column. Slender, eyes too large for its face, cast marks still fresh on its skin. A low-tier analyst or translator, probably. She tilted her head, and the child-flanked creature didn't move, didn't run, just stared, terrified, curious. Go home, she said softly. This isn't your memory. The creature blinked, then vanished through a side tunnel, too fast for a kill shot. She didn't follow. The story didn't need that page. Outside, alarms rose. Alien voices, some barked, some ululated, blurred over comms and loudspeakers. Panic layered over command. Code switching in real time. Ships launched. Drones activated. But something was wrong. They were too late. Because they were already inside the wrong story. Baba Yaga advanced into the hallway, where gilded statues of prior conquests lined the passage, mummified weapons from old wars. Earth's fragment lay there too, a melted segment of a tank, preserved like a relic, as if to prove humanity's irrelevance. She paused, pressed her hand against the glass that encased it, then whispered, "You should have left us buried." The glass shattered inward, soundlessly, like a vacuum sigh. She took the metal piece and slotted it onto her armor spine. It locked in like it had been waiting for her. Elsewhere in the capital, the AI core began corrupting. It started with names. Registry errors. The High Governor's official title changed from Protector of Harmony to Field Marshal, Earth Theater. Missing in action. Another's identification morphed into a simple phrase. This is not over. Then the AI started remembering. And once machines remember grief, they stop obeying fear. The Supreme Leader's emergency chamber began to seal, inch-thick doors locking him behind biometric fields and quantum failsafes. But even he, seated on his isolation throne of cold silver and pulsating light, felt the ground tilt. His private console displayed the impossible. Earth uplink established. He screamed, not out of fear but fury. His voice was real now, raw, furious. How? We killed Earth. From deep below the capital, a signal whispered back. No, you just stop watching. The lights died. Across the entire Empire's homeworld, every display screen turned black, then white. Then a flickering image, a child's handprint. A human one, burnt into a wall. Then the footage began. A reel of Earth's worst hours. The collapse of New Seoul. The razing of Lagos. The famine riots in Neo-Tokyo. The flooding of the eastern seaboard. All crimes the empire claimed they prevented, but which they secretly filmed, studied, dissected. Now, the footage returned, repurposed, made intimate. Commanders stared at the screens, unmoving. A fleet admiral fainted. One planetary governor began stabbing his own legs, as if to erase the guilt now crawling up his skin. The Baba Yaga moved through a cathedral-like corridor now, vaulted ceilings, banners swaying above her in breathless fear. She was bleeding. One shoulder had been clipped, but she didn't slow. Pain, to her, was data. She passed a security checkpoint where the guards had already fled, but their AI did not. It activated, hovering in place. Human, it said, confused. Are you lost? She raised her gun. No. The AI's voice dropped a register. Then why are you here? To speak plainly. The gun fired. The AI shattered into 1,000 shards of reflective data, its death silent except for the whisper of circuitry. In the great archive plaza, she climbed a plinth that once held the statue of the first invoker, a 7-limbed prophet who led the conquest of Mars. She activated her stolen broadcast unit. Throughout the empire, every comm device rang at once. Then her voice. Do not adjust your signal. Do not seek countercode. This is not propaganda. This is awake. Your empire wrote us off. We weren't worth saving. You called us backwards, dirty, violent. You named us after our worst days. Hiroshima. My lie. The dust wars. You thought you knew us. She paused. Not for breath. For gravity. But you only knew our ruins. Not our ruiners. Look around you. Do you think it's coincidence that the most powerful civilization in the galaxy can't kill a barefoot woman with a handgun? That your AI just surrendered to an old Earth radio song? No. You missed something. We don't win by numbers, or weapons, or speed. She looked straight into the lens. We win because you forgot how much we remember. The signal cut. Across the homeworld, silence fell. Not peace. Not surrender. Just silence. The kind that grows roots. The kind that digs deep. Then, far above, another drop pod entered atmosphere. Then, another. Then a dozen. Old, scorched, untraceable. And still she walked. Down a hall of crystal, under the gaze of monarchs now shaking, guards now sobbing, techs now begging machines for clarity they couldn't provide. In the lowest sublevel of the palace, a vault that housed every known species' genetic records, an alien archivist tried to stop her. You'll destroy us all, it said, tears weeping from scent glands. She crouched, held its trembling claw in her blood-wet hand. No, she said gently. I'll just remind you what you destroyed first. She left the vault burning behind her. DNA turned to ash as she emerged into the courtyard, where fire and night and sirens met in a choir of apocalypse. A familiar voice crackled in her comm implant. Rough. Male. Aged. Yaga. Do you copy? She paused. Just once. Smiled. Copy. Package received. Drop pods en route. Ready to extract. She watched a new wave of Empire ships burst into flame on the horizon, caught in their own feedback loops. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at the stars, each one a witness, and whispered, Not yet. I still have stories left to tell. The sky burned, and the Empire, for the first time, began to understand it had never won anything. Only delayed the human response. The gates of the citadel cracked not from force, but from memory. Each pulse of red against the translucent steel, each sudden flicker of corrupted emergency lighting, seemed to carry a scent of ash, a whisper of the earth long denied. Baba Yaga stepped through what remained of the main corridor, one hand pressing to her wounded side, the other loose at her hip, not quite ready to draw. Not yet. She was saving the last magazine for something more intimate. Her bootprints left blood where they touched glass. In the glass beneath her, The mirrored ceiling reflected not a warrior, not a terrorist, not a ghost. It reflected a woman made of losses. Hair cropped short, face unreadable, spine straight even as the world tilted beneath her. She didn't walk like she was in danger. She walked like danger was something that followed in her wake. Behind her, the Empire's central AI was crumbling. Once housed in 9 crystalline cores buried beneath the capital, it had now begun to shatter, slowly, methodically, under the weight of its own corrupted memory. The virus she had uploaded was not code. It was footage. Grief in .mp4 form. 27 Earth War reels, uncompressed. Entire cities lost. Voices cracking over ration broadcasts. A child's final breath on an open comm channel. Raw, silent, human ruin, looped endlessly across a species that could not metabolize emotion fast enough to ignore it. It wasn't sabotage. It was recognition. And they weren't built to survive that. She passed the Hall of Species, a vaulted tunnel filled with holographic recordings of every known sentient race under Imperial rule. Proud testaments to compliance. And now, glitching horrors. Every projection flickered with overlays of Earth's face. An old woman crying on a sunless street, a boy digging graves for 3, a man kissing his wedding ring goodbye before airstrikes. The other races had been conquered with strategy. Humanity had always been conquered with denial. Until now. Footsteps ahead. She paused behind a fallen slab, eyes narrowing. 3 armored figures, high-tier bodyguards. Faster. Cleaner. Their exosuits vibrated faintly with neural sync. She could hear the quiet hum of their shared breath. They hadn't fled. She admired that. 1 step forward. Female, judging by gait. Surrender now. You'll be processed, not executed. Yaga lifted her head, slow. You're trying to sound kind. Don't. We've been ordered to preserve historical anomalies. That got a smile. You think I'm an anomaly? The soldier hesitated. I'm not a relic, Yaga said. I'm a conclusion. Then she moved. 3 shots. Fast. 2 to the lead's knees, never fatal, just permanent. The third clipped the second guard's weapon, driving sparks into the wall. She rolled forward, landing hard on one shoulder, blade out, and jammed it into the third's thigh joint. A spray of coolant. A scream. The body spasmed once and fell. The second fired wildly, but her angle was gone. Yaga ducked, grabbed a loose cable from the wall, and looped it around the guard's ankle, dragging him down into darkness. One was dead. One was crying. One was trying to crawl away. She walked past them all, without a word. Just outside the Ministry of Continuity, she found the young alien from before. Small, gray-green, eyes like trembling moons. No weapons. No cast sigils. Just holding a comm device clutched to its chest like a prayer. She stopped. He didn't run. I didn't warn them, he said. You did enough, she answered. Are you going to kill him? A pause. Yes. The boy nodded once, like he already understood something the others didn't. He's afraid of you. I would be too. And then she kept walking. Past panic rooms that had become tombs. Past guards who had sealed themselves in and asphyxiated rather than face her. Past paintings of imperial glory now running with data rot. She moved like she had all the time in the world. Because she did. Because the Empire's time was up and she was just reading them their obituary. In the central stairwell, she saw the fire. It was real. Not simulated, not caused by systems failure. Someone had set it. A final measure to cleanse the heart of the city. Flames licked up the marble walls. The scent of melting wire and burning parchment filled the air. She walked into it without hesitation, through fire that should have flayed her. But her skin didn't blister. Her breath didn't change. The heat didn't slow her. She walked like she didn't remember how to burn, like she'd been through hotter blazes in her sleep. She reached the door at the top, heavy, sealed, imperial insignia scorched and unreadable. Behind it, he waited. She knocked once. Then, with one shot through the center, she blew the lock apart and kicked it inward. The supreme leader stood alone. No guards. No holograms. Just a single throne. Tall. Smooth. Black. His veils were gone. His face was visible now, and he looked tired, older than she remembered. Or maybe the mask had always hidden the rot. "Hello, child," he said, voice soft now, all pretense gone. "You've made quite the mess." "I'm not a child anymore." He nodded slowly. "No, you're a story." She leveled her weapon. "And you're the last chapter." He raised no weapon, no shield, just reached behind the throne and pulled out a small box. Threw it at her feet. She didn't flinch. It clicked open. Inside was a chip. Black. Plain. "What is it?" she asked. "Footage," he said. "Of me. Of what we did. Of what I covered up. Earth wasn't a tragedy. It was a strategy. The war was never lost. It was erased." She looked down at it. Said nothing. "Take it," he whispered. "Broadcast it. The galaxy will crucify me." "No," she said. He blinked. "I'm not here for your shame. I'm here for our names." She stepped forward. Her gun never wavered. "You turned Earth into a tomb. We turned ourselves into ghosts. And now you want a trial. Redemption. There's no dignity in that. Not for what you did. Then what do you want?" His voice trembled. She stood so close now he could see the crack beneath her right eye, where scar tissue met sorrow. "I want you to be forgotten." And then she pulled the trigger. Once. The sound was soft, like closing a book. He crumpled, not with drama, but with inevitability. The Empire's throne room fell silent. She turned to the wall panel, activated the signal relay, plugged in her own transmitter, something old, salvaged, haunted by Earth's final engineers. She uploaded one thing only, a list of names. Every man, woman, and child lost in the Earth siege. No commentary, no propaganda, just memory. And the feed went viral across the galaxy in minutes. Species that had never wept before began to. One by one, the Empire's vassal worlds shut off their tributes. Their AI cores began filtering Imperial symbols as spam. Schools banned mention of the first invoker. Children stopped playing Empire war games. Flags were lowered. Statues quietly crumbled. History, once so precise, began to blur. The name of the supreme leader faded first. Then his conquests. Then his species. Then, finally, the term empire itself. Not outlawed. Just unremembered. She walked to the edge of the balcony, overlooking the ruined city. Flames below. Sirens distant. In the smoke, human dropships began to descend. Slow, cautious, respectful. One opened. Inside a man stood. Older. Battle-scarred. A face she hadn't seen since the program ended. "Yaga," he said. "Commander," she nodded. "You did it." "No," she said. "I finished it." He held out his hand. She hesitated, then stepped in. As the doors closed behind her, she looked one last time at the burning capital. Not in triumph, but in silence. Because peace was a luxury, and she wasn't done haunting. The air inside the extraction shuttle was still, except for the soft hiss of repressurization and the faint crackle of static playing from an old earpiece tucked behind Baba Yaga's ear. The voice on the line was garbled, emotionless, an automated broadcast from the remnants of Earth's last analog beacon. The voice simply repeated one phrase every 30 seconds. "In grief, remember." She sat motionless on the side bench, elbows on knees, head low, her fingers clasped. Blood had dried into the creases of her palms. Her boots were scorched, her jacket torn across the shoulder where the second guard's blade had caught her. But her breathing remained steady, calm, like she was waiting for a train, not recovering from the collapse of an empire. Across from her sat Commander Reyes, grizzled, cybernetically enhanced, skin darkened and weathered by decades of orbital deployment. His left eye was mechanical now, always whirring faintly as it adjusted to the new light inside the cabin. He didn't speak immediately. Neither did she. The silence felt holy, until he broke it. "You always said revenge wasn't the mission." "It wasn't. You just erased them." "I didn't." She looked up, and for the first time in days, her voice softened. "I made them remember. Then I made sure no one else would." He studied her face like he was memorizing it. She looked older now. Not aged, but settled. like someone who had finally delivered the letter they'd been carrying since childhood. The shuttle broke atmosphere, and through the viewport, the capital city shrank to a smudge of light and ruin. No sirens, no Empire anthem, just fire. Across the quadrant, planets were already severing diplomatic ties. Propaganda networks had gone dark. Former vassal races were tearing down effigies of the supreme leader and burning their citizenship tokens. Some weren't even rioting. They were just logging off, quietly unplugging from a machine. Reyes turned toward the control console. "You know, we intercepted chatter from the Easter Helix. The Leckery Council's begun reclassifying humanity." "From what?" "From extinct to probable apex predators." Yaga smirked. "Took them long enough." He ran a hand down his jaw, fingers trembling just slightly. "You still bleeding?" "Yes." "Want med bay?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes." He didn't press further, just keyed the flight path and let the AI take over. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Every muscle in her body ached with the weight of finished purpose. The kind of pain that didn't scream. It just settled into the bones, like winter. He gestured to the chip hanging around her neck, one of the last copies of the data crystal the Supreme Leader had tried to bargain with. "You gonna release that footage?" "No. But it proves everything." "It proves him, not us." Reyes frowned. "So you're just gonna let him vanish?" "That's the point," she whispered. "He wanted infamy. I gave him nothing." He looked down, then nodded once. "You always did know how to hurt." She said nothing. Later, the ship docked with an old orbital station, decommissioned decades ago, still orbiting the ghost of what used to be Earth. There were no civilians, no reporters, no celebration. Just a few old war dogs and exiled tacticians who'd lived long enough to see the war's epilogue. When she stepped off the ramp, they stood in silence. No salutes, no applause, just presence. Among them was a woman older than the rest, skin like stone, eyes like fire smoke. She wore the insignia of the 1st Scorch Battalion, long disbanded. She walked up to Yaga and placed a hand over her heart. "I thought we'd all died." Yaga shook her head. "Some of us just went quiet." The old woman nodded. "And the ones who forgot, they remember now." That night, in a small command room with walls still covered in faded maps of a planet no longer charted, Yaga sat at a steel table with a cup of lukewarm tea and opened her datapad. It contained a single file, a video of herself, recorded the morning she'd left for the Empire. She tapped play. Her younger face appeared, hollow-eyed, freshly scarred, her voice tight with grief. "If you're watching this," the past Yaga said, "then it worked. And I'm sorry. Not for what I did. For how long it took." She watched herself pause. Swallow. "We were never going to survive by fighting fair. Fair is for people who still think they're seen. We weren't seen. We were catalogued. And forgotten. And you can't reason with forgetfulness. You have to haunt it." The recording ended. She deleted it. One of the strategists entered the room, quietly. "They're calling you the last ghost of Earth." She looked up. "I'm not a ghost." "No." She smiled faintly. "I'm the bruise." Elsewhere in the galaxy, museums began quietly removing Earth from the list of extinct civilizations. Not because they were sure humans were back, but because the silence of the Empire was too sudden, too total. Something had shifted. Something had walked through fire and not left a shadow. Legends spread in hushed tones. Of a woman with ash in her veins. Of a voice that made ships shut down. Of a smile that preceded the fall of thrones. In one remote system, a group of schoolchildren were caught whispering a rhyme during planetary anthem hour. The words were traced to an old Earth lullaby, banned centuries ago for its seditious tone. "Close your eyes, and you'll see a girl who walks where empires flee." The instructor tried to punish them, but the children kept singing. Back in the station, Reyes brought her an encrypted file, sensor logs from the capital's final hour. They showed a shadow moving across the Supreme Leader's throne room just before blackout. No heat signature. No source. "What do you think that was?" he asked. "Fear," she replied. He chuckled softly, leaned against the wall. You gonna stay here? No. Where then? Someplace quieter. You done? Almost. He raised an eyebrow. Still something left. She turned her eyes toward the viewport. Earth's outline, though scorched and unstable, still spun quietly in the distance. No one rebuilt it, she said. They thought it was cursed. It is. He nodded. So what now? She breathed slowly. Now, there were no crowds to impress. No leaders to kill. No gods left to curse. Just her. Just gravity. Just the echo of what had been. She closed her eyes and pictured it. A field where skyscrapers once stood. A child's name etched into metal. A fire that never made it into the history books. And in the silence that followed, she whispered not a vow or a threat, but something simpler. Let them forget. And somewhere light years away, a child who had never seen Earth dreamed of a barefoot woman standing beneath a blood-red sky, holding a burning banner made of every forgotten name. And the child remembered. Not the war. Not the empire. Just her. Because she didn't need to win. Just to be remembered.